Like, it's funny that trick and thinking about software, like how much do folks who use it like you and I quite a bit need to be forced to find the new things versus the vast majority of people, the 95% of users who only use it to make a page or open a ticket. How much are they looking to force them to go find new things?
A lot of your, I guess, your foundations coming from the world of Udemy. So what got you to want to create a Udemy course? Because I didn't start with Udemy. I started with YouTube.
My whole thought process with that was I just want to learn how to make a course because I had ideas for making one, but I'd never pulled the trigger because to me it was such a big thing.
Are you manually reassigning your JSM agents tickets when somebody goes on vacation? Well, today's sponsor, Resolution's out-of-office assistant app for Jira and JSM, make this task way, way easier. Stop round robbing and randomly assigning tickets and use their app to automatically reassign tickets to the appropriate agent that's not on vacation. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian. Today I have Rob, not the fake one, from Heen Tech. Thank you very much, Rob.
Yeah, it's a bit of an inside joke. I was in a Slack instance. I had two accounts, and so I had to rename one Rob, not the fake one. I think the fake one's still in there somewhere, though, so folks have to be careful.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what happens if I ever talk to the fake one.
Somebody did once. They mentioned me, and I had to go figure out how to log in as the old one, which is an interesting artifact of using systems. Right, you end up with old user accounts that maybe shouldn't be there, and they just cause confusion.
Yep. We all know how our Atlassian IDs go sometimes, man. I have like a dozen or so. and on community.atlassian.com, I can be one of 20 Alexes.
Yeah, you should start well, there's a charity in Denver called Josh Fight where it invites people named Josh to come around and like have a water balloon fight or something. Maybe you could do that with Alex.
Alex is a pretty popular name, and it's like both sexes can use it, right? So it's
Mhm.
like there's a lot of Alexes out there, and it might yield much greater numbers of active participants.
Sounds like it, yeah.
The Alex Club. Yeah, no, let's not talk about my ego any more than I have to. It's a dangerous place to be. So Rob, how did you get into this Atlassian ecosystem? Like what's your origin story?
That's a great question. When I moved to the Bay Area, I came from an industrial company in Portland, Oregon, and very old school, all Microsoft stack, including like SharePoint. So that was my first big exposure to any kind of, knowledge-based system. And I forget the name of the ticketing system. It certainly wasn't Atlassian products. Moved to the Bay Area, and the first
TFS,
job I
right?
have.
Microsoft's TFS.
Sorry.
Microsoft uses TFS.
Oh yeah, I'm so far out of it. I don't even know if we used a Microsoft solution for ticketing.
Oh,
Um,
I
yeah,
thought since
that's
you were
how
in the
much I
Microsoft camp, you might have.
forgot. But got to the Bay Area, got a job here, and was just told. I asked what knowledge base do we use? And they go, oh, Confluence, and that was the summation of my training. That's all they told me about it. I go, oh, okay. So I kind of poked around, and eventually the role I had didn't use Jira for anything, but I figured out eventually, oh, if we find a bug in our system, we have to report it. Like, how do I report it? Oh, use this Jira thing. And the training was about the same. So I kind of got just thrown in. Like the company I was
Mhm.
at happened to use Confluence and other Atlassian products. But there was no structure around it. There was no guidance on best practice. There was no even basic training on it. So I got into it by doing. I was like, oh, I
That's
have to do my job. I have these tools. Like, let's figure out how to use the tools.
that's the best way to learn sometimes though, right? Just trial by fire.
I find it works for some folks. Like, I enjoy it now, and I don't know if that's because I happen to have roles where that is the only way to learn the tool, and I just got to know it over time, or if that just works for me intrinsically. But for me, yeah, that's a great way, Alex. Like sitting down and just poking around in something to figure it out. That said, I do know many folks don't have the time, the energy, or the desire to learn that way.
It's
Yeah.
scary though, right? Because like especially when I look at Atlassian's documentation, I don't know if you were around for the Jira server days, but back in the day, you could buy well, you wouldn't buy, but you could have a book, right?
Oh,
You can print
excellent.
out a PDF, like it was a
Mhm.
500 pager, but you can print out a 500-page PDF and you can go pretty serially, right? Pretty
Mhm.
linear and learn Jira, right? That was like a thing. But then when they went to the cloud, and this is the biggest problem I have with SaaS products today, is like you jump into Atlassian documentation And one link takes you to another link that takes you to another link, which takes you to another link, which takes you to a whole other set of links. And like 30 minutes later, you're like 50 links deep, and you're like, where the hell, where did I start this journey from?
Yeah,
And
what
where
did I
am I?
even come here looking for?
Yeah. And that's what I absolutely hate about SaaS documentation in general. I think a lot of companies suffer from the same thing. I love this linear, read it in a book, A through Z mentality. But
Mhm.
when you're just like, where the heck am I? Like, I think it gets scary to learn by fire because you're like, where do I even start?
Yeah, like where I'm at now, 8 or 9 or 10 years into Atlassian, but also other SaaS stuff. It's like I'm used to that, and I kind of enjoy that. It's like choose your own adventure. Like
I've
I learned stuff I wouldn't have tripped over if I hadn't just been going through the rabbit hole. But for someone new, you give them this endless website, it can be very confusing and intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I still struggle with it even today, right? It's why I stick with the Atlassian ecosystem and I haven't went on to learn like Monday.com or something because I'm like,
Yeah.
man, I just gotta, where do I even start with them? Because they have the same problem of like they got 50 different links that take you to 50 different places. And
Well,
I like
it's
linear.
yeah, well, it's interesting to see how the product folks are trying to build in the guidance to use the thing. Where every once in a while I get these pop-ups. Oh, did you notice this new feature? Or oh, check, I've noticed you haven't logged in. Try this. So some products are trying to like put it in product, but you're
Yeah.
right. The documentation is still just broad.
Yeah. And the product ones, it's interesting you bring that up because now as an expert that I am, I find those to be very mildly annoying.
Yeah, like get out of my face kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because I'm trying to add a user to a project. And it's like, did you know that you can just now type in Maria's name from your Google account and it'll go find Maria? And I'm like, I don't care about Maria right now. I just
Oh,
want
it's
to
kind of
add the
like those.
email.
Yeah, it's like those tips when you play video games that pop up in between. You're like, yeah, I've seen this 57 times. You can stop telling me about the blank.
Right.
Yeah, I wish there was like an opt out. Like, I know this, just don't show them to me.
Yeah. Every time I go to the advanced roadmap that I make a brand new advanced roadmap, it's like, would you like a tour? I'm like, no, I'm the expert here. I'm trying to give the tour to somebody.
I
Like,
would, but I'll give it. Thank you. That's it. Like sometimes I do appreciate those, especially with SaaS products. Like the joke I have is every time you open it, something's different. And unless you notice it or know or have read it, you'll miss something. But there's got to be a
let me,
balance. Like show
yeah,
it to me once, don't keep showing me.
I was gonna say, let me take you to October of 2023 when
Oh
Atlassian
yes.
decided to move a button on the UI, and all hell broke loose. Did
It's
you did you see
I
that?
did
Did you
not
catch
notice
that
that.
one?
Or if I did, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, October
But
2023, the user management used to be at the top. So you would hit the gear and you'd see
mhm,
user management and then all the Jira admin stuff you can do, and then your personal profile uh configurations,
gotcha.
right?
Yep.
But then Atlassian for some reason decided to flip him. And so the user management went down to the bottom. And I'm like, you just can't move this button that I click a million times every single day for the last 5 years to a different spot.
I was talking to someone like and there must be a reason. Like there must be a group of people somewhere in a room who decide changes like that. Um, but yeah,
Mm.
frustrating for those of us who know where things are and are used to things being where they are.
Maybe they're like Costco. I don't know if you've heard of the Costco conspiracy.
Oh yeah, they move stuff around so you find new stuff, right?
Right. Well, so
Yeah.
that you have to go hunting and then you're making new discoveries and because like you know that they carry something you want and but now they moved it on you. So now you gotta go find it. And on your way to that journey, it's like
You mean you don't
serendipity
stick
happens
just to
along.
your list?
Dude, we have a new rule, completely new rule here in my family. We walk into Costco without a shopping cart. If you can carry it, you can buy it.
Oh, that'd be bad because I could carry quite a lot.
Yeah, but not more than a cart.
Yeah, true. Although, let's see, when we moved our homes, we got a bigger television. We have a Honda Fit. I was like, oh, we could, fit the TV in there. The box is too big. So I could get it to the car, and I'm in the parking lot going, what do I do? I had to take it out of the box in the parking lot, fold the box up, put the box in the car, put the TV on the box in the car, and drive home. So,
Yeah, I found myself many a times at a Costco car parking lot taking things out of the boxes because dimensionally it fits in the car, just not with the box.
mhm.
I I I've done that more times than I would care to admit.
Well, it's funny that trick and thinking about software, like how much do folks who use it like you and I quite a bit need to be forced to find the new things versus the vast majority of people, the 95% of users who only use it to make a page or open a ticket. how much are they looking to force them to go find new things?
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because as you know, Atlassian is revamping the UI very, very soon. And everybody was cheering and laughing and like having fun. They're like, yay, Jira's Jira now. And all
Mhm.
I could think about is like, craps, that's 600 videos I got to redo.
I was just so I've got a bunch of like Udemy courses, right? Or like YouTube videos and the UI changes. And it's always this balance of like, I just put the course out 6 months ago. Do I really want to go re-record it just because the screen changed?
Well, this is why I'm doing the summer series, right? When I was planning it out because team was what, end of April, and
Mhm.
I don't start my summer series until Memorial Day. So I had like a 3.5 week spread between. And so as I'm doing my planning and I came up with all the ideas of everything that I wanted to do for the channel, I'm like, all of this is gonna have to re-change as soon as they drop that new UI. So I'm like, how do I put content out without putting content out? I know. Let me interview people.
So there's a number of products that'll record the screen. And it's basically just an automated process. I used one years ago called ClickLearn. It worked in Internet Explorer, if that tells you anything about how old it was. Um, but it would record the process, and you could just then rerun that recording as the UI changes, and it would just re-record. Now, it would make like PDF documentation, HTML file, and then an interactive video. So if someone, let's say in Jira, they just how do I make a ticket? It would show them, but it would be updated, and you could just rerun it once a month, once every 6 months to refresh the screenshots versus what I think you and I have to do, which is to sit down and re-record the whole 20,
Right.
34 hours of stuff.
Yeah. It's painful. I just finished re-recording my Udemy course, and I do wanna jump into
Hey,
Udemy in a second here.
yeah,
But yeah, it's like my wife was like, "This was so much better than the first time." I'm like, "Thank you, wife."
that's it's funny thinking through like, I got into the content stuff with Udemy. My first big content thing was a Udemy course. And over time, just thinking back to how I've evolved, like thinking what I want to do with the course, and then how do I create it and record it, and how much better I've gotten or how far I've gone. Thinking back to when I first started, I was standing in this room. I had a teleprompter, but I had to like load. What did I do? I wrote the script. I had to load the script onto my tablet, find some way to like mirror it, get it on the teleprompter, and then manually like progress it.
Yeah.
And then now none of that happens, and I can, I'm filming it in such a way where I can edit it much more quickly. So I've cut
Do
down
you
the
still
time.
script your courses?
Yeah, oh yeah. If you look at my courses, anyone where I'm standing up against the wall is all scripted. So
Really?
the first 7 were scripted. Um, and now I'm going back to some of them to reshoot, and I'm like, I don't want to script them because what I've done more recently is I sit down, I have my structure, I fill out the slides. So let's say I'm doing one on Confluence. What does a beginner need? Okay, the sections. What is a space? Or how does access work? What are the lectures in there? And then it's just a series essentially of slideshows, say 10 slides, 4 bullet points each that I can talk over. And so my wife realized, she's like, oh, these are topics you just know. You could talk to someone off the cuff. The bullet points are there for the learner to see and for, like, to remind you what you wanted to say.
Mhm.
But it speeds it up so much because you don't have to sit there and how
Type it
many
all out. Yeah.
pages?
Yeah, because I just like I said, I just dropped my course. Now, the first time I did the course, it was like a 4-hour course.
Mhm.
I was trying to do bare bones. I was trying to just get something out, so I just read the slides. So
Yep.
naturally, it took me a while to put everything onto the slide. But with this one, here we are. I launched that first course in August, so here we're like 10 months later, and I put bullets on the course only, right? Like just key ideas, key things that you need to know.
Yeah.
But I jump into Jira the majority of the time. So I would say like 1/3 is on the PowerPoint and 2/3 is now in Jira.
Mhm.
Which last time I didn't really even jump in, like I jumped into Jira once in a while, but I try to just stay to the PowerPoint. And my wife's like, "This is much better," because it's natural, right? You're like, I'm just reinforcing the couple of bullets that I just read over for you. So
Yeah, I
it's
tend to do the ones I've recently done have been like project management basics, so not like a system technical skill, but I'll do something similar where I start with a 30-second, 1-minute talking head. Hi, here's what we're going to learn, like to tee it up. And then it's to the slides to talk about in-depth stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's made it easier to record and also easier to edit, honestly. I've gotten better about stopping and backing up, like reshooting the whole slide if I make one mistake versus before when I was standing against the wall scripting. If you're reading a script and you make a mistake, you got to back it up And then when you go to try to edit that, you'll be in a slightly different spot. Like something will
Right.
happen that
Yeah.
makes it harder. You can put B-roll over it. There's some tricks you can do. It's just annoying.
Yeah. No, Nikki and Biro, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
Monday Coffee. Have you ever heard of
Okay.
Monday Coffee? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So they went there. They had a company called Jexa. They got acquired by AppFire last April-ish timeframe.
Mhm.
And they would have a podcast. They had a show on YouTube called Monday Coffee. And that show is scripted. Very Biro is like a perfectionist when it comes to content creation, and the husband. And they did a special 100th episode,
Mhm.
and they included members of the Atlassian community to be on it, right? To just have their like little 10-second moment of fame. And they sent me the script over. And Bear was like, "All right, we got 5 minutes. Just read through it." And I'm like, it took us like a half an hour to read that thing because I cannot do scripts for if my life depends on it. Like it throws me off so much.
Oh, I've most of the time it's just I'm like a one person shop. It's me in this room basically. I have recorded with like a team with like a camera person, a teleprompter operator, and I go off script. Like as I'm reading what I wrote, I go, "That sounds dumb. I'm going to say something slightly different." And it drives the folks I'm working with crazy because they're seeing the script and like, "Wait, did you want to re-record that?" Like, no.
You're like, "Nope, that was really perfect."
Yeah, like that sounded like, don't worry, I'll stop. Or like if I sound stupid, stop me. But otherwise, I'm just going to keep going, and it will differ from the script, which is fine.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
but just
so let's talk a little bit more about Udemy then, right? So
yeah.
you just entered kind of the content creator as you're wearing your amazing creator shirt there, right? But you have a history, right? You have a history here, and a lot of your I guess your foundations coming from the world of Udemy. So what
Mhm.
got you to want to create a Udemy course? Because I didn't start with Udemy. I started with YouTube. I started with
Yeah.
the free. Like what made you feel confident enough to say, I'm gonna charge for my knowledge?
It's funny when I think of most creators, not just within the Atlassian ecosystem, but they in my mind they start with, okay, I'm going to do YouTube or TikTok or Insta, and then I'll figure out how to monetize. Like you'll build the base and all that. I joke that I did the opposite. Like I had no base when I started Udemy. They actually approached me. They have a group called Udemy Business, and they have a list of courses that they want for that big catalog that they sell. And if they can find it in their existing catalog, they'll just pull it in. But if they can't, they'll go find someone who can teach it. So I had a former boss who was approached and, "Hey, Elizabeth, could you do a course on HR data?" And she's like, "No, but there's this guy, Rob, who can help you." And so then they called me up. "Hey, Rob, I happened to work at Udemy at the time, which was completely coincidental. But I worked with that team and they set me up with someone to help me think through the content. Like, how do you approach building a course? How do you consider the audience or the learners or the objectives?" They helped me figure out the scripting. Like, I had to create it all, but they would guide me in terms of best practice. They would help me use the tools to
Mm.
make the content. And then they set up a shoot where these two camera guys show up with a teleprompter and lighting and all that. There was no makeup, but everything else pretty much. Record it, then they handle editing and off it goes. And my whole thought process with that was I just want to learn how to make a course because I had ideas for making one, but I'd never pulled the trigger because to me it was such a big thing. Like, how do I even start? I have an idea, but how do I take that idea of technical communication and make it something that people will pay money for? And that gave me the structure and the framework. So then from there, I could just essentially copy and paste the structure onto the next course and the next one and the next one.
So what
But
made you want to jump into the Atlassian ecosystem for that
mhm.
subject matter?
Yeah, great question. It's something I've used for a while. I joke that I got into Atlassian because that's what I was forced to use. Like people at work are like, "Oh, Rob loves Jira. It's great for everything." I go, "It's great for a lot of things, but it's also the tool that we have." So like maybe we use it and then we figure out where the edges are and then we examine other things. We don't just go buy fill in the blank product. And same for Confluence. Like we have this tool. It's really powerful and a lot of people seem to like it. So maybe we should figure out how to use it first. So that got me thinking about it. And then the Atlassian creator stuff started. I was just posting on LinkedIn, here's how to use a Confluence tip kind of thing. And then
Yeah, you
someone,
started off. You have some humble beginnings in your content creation, with
yeah,
respect to outside of Udemy, at least, right? Like outside of Udemy, it's a pretty humble beginning there.
well, it's funny looking back. Like I forget, it must have been October last year, somewhere in there. "Oh, hi, Rob, I'm so and so from Atlassian. Would you like to join the creators? We've noticed you posting about it." I'm like, Sure. I don't know what that means, but
Sounds
I'll do
nice.
that. um, but thinking about that trajectory, it's like, okay, I can build a 2-hour course on a topic. Cool. But how do I get people to be aware of that course, or how do I build my skills in creating stuff? And that was my initial thought with the creators. Like, I know nothing about social media. Like, I know what it is, but I don't know how to use it as a tool to help get my voice out there and help find things. So my thought process with the creators was, hey, there's a ton of folks in there who know a ton about this that I can learn from. Also, I happen to use Atlassian products professionally, so I won't be able to know too much about them, right? So I should hang out with these people and learn from them on both ways, both my personal, how do I use LinkedIn as one of the main platforms, or YouTube or whatever,
Yeah,
but also how do I use Atlassian?
because when you and I met for the very first time, that was kind of like my initial reaction where you're like, hey, like 80, 70% or whatever that number was of the traffic to your Udemy courses is organically through Udemy
Hmm.
versus like 10, 20% was you promoting. And I was
Yeah.
like, 95% of my traffic is me promoting, and like 5% is Udemy promoting it.
Yeah. And that's something I'm constantly, wrestling with from the Rob as a business side, the Heen Tech side. It's like, okay, how do I get more people there? Because it's better for me, right? I get a bigger cut of the revenue. But the courses are also good enough that they have legs on Udemy's own platform. So it's good enough, but I want to do better. So how do I do the better part, the thing that you're tapping into with the 95% from your own your
Yeah,
own
and I'm trying to
referral?
figure out how to do the legs by itself.
Mhm.
I do have. I know how many courses do you have right now?
9 are live.
9 are live, and how many
Mhm.
you're actively working on?
New ones or existing ones?
New, like what's in your backlog, or what's on your docket right now that's not published? Like how many?
I'm partnering with a guy named Joseph Phillips to build out a teamwork course. I don't know when that'll be live or what that'll look like, but that'll be a 10 to 12-hour monster.
Wow.
So that's one. And then I've started revamping existing courses, kind of like we were talking about earlier. All the screens are a little bit different.
Yeah,
um,
just a tad. Just
but also looking back, going, oh, I could improve this course, for these reasons, or based on feedback I've received over a year, I can make the course better. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to improve existing stock, but I've got a few ideas for what's the next course, so to speak.
that's good. Yeah, I have just the one that I published, and I just finished recording it, and it is currently now being edited. Now, my
Nice.
first time, I think I told you, right, it's like a 4-hour thing. I think this time I haven't checked the numbers, but if I did back of the napkin math, it's at least 20 minutes, 14 modules, each module to about 20 minutes.
Hmm.
So not sure what that over 200 minutes.
4.5 hours. Yeah.
4.5. So it's gonna be a little bit longer, maybe. Just but it feels a lot longer, right? Because I jumped into Jira. But I got the next 14 in the like on docket. And I'm like,
It's
maybe that's a
interesting
little
with
too
the
aggressive.
Yeah, it's interesting with the course length. If you read through, like, just thinking using Udemy, they have some guidance somewhere. It's like anything over 3 hours can be too long, depending on the audience. But if you go and just type in Jira, you'll see courses in there that are like 20 hours of content or something crazy. So it's always interesting to think through, how long do I want to make this course? My shortest one's like an hour and 15 minutes, but it's one of the most popular.
Really?
Yeah. Project
Well,
management basics for non-project managers. So I think it was the topic that resonates with folks, and it was an appropriate length for that thing. It didn't need
yeah,
to
that's
be longer.
that's something I might want to play around with then, right? Because my idea was I have like a whole funnel that I'm trying to build, right? Because the Udemy is just for me is the loss leader.
Mhm.
I'm trying to see Udemy as something that people can find, but it solves people that have no money but a lot of time. Not my target audience. My target audience is people that have a lot of money but no time. Yes. Right? Because, the
Mm.
opposite, right? Because on
Mhm.
Udemy, you're gonna have folks that, like, have a lot of time, so they can sit there and watch a 1 hour, 10-hour, 30-hour course, but their budgets are severely limited to a 10, 15, $20 course, right?
Yeah.
Versus somebody that has no time, so they'll pay a premium for an hour video, but it's, like, jam-packed with value in that hour.
How do you, I guess, how do you balance that then? Because an hour of content on how to use Jira is an hour of content on how to use Jira. So how do you target the thing that will be valuable enough that they'll pay the premium?
It wouldn't be through a course. It would be through me doing something for them.
Gotcha. So you're thinking more like either ILT, instructor-led training, live stuff, or oh, I'll come be your Jira person for X
Correct.
period.
So it's like that's the funnel, right? So
Mhm.
it starts off with the free webinar type of thing. Like, here's a teaser, kind of what we're doing with the Atlassian live trainings, right? Where here's an hour, it's totally free. It gets your feet wet, right? If
Mhm.
you and then I'm using that as like, if you want to take this to the next level, here's a 3 to 4 hour course that you can pay 10, 15 bucks for, and you get more in depth and it's not rushed than just that 60-minute period that we have, right? But then the next step is like, okay, so once a month or once a quarter, whatever my time allows, is like instructor-led training, right? Where it's like we'll jump on a Zoom and it's like a 2 day thing where you come in for 4 hour days or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you're now in the hundreds of dollars versus the tens of dollars. And then ultimately people realize how hard Jira is, right? Because like you can teach people how to do a workflow, you can teach people how to status, but at the end of the day, man, there's so many like just adding a custom field. Like if I were to tell you, Rob, add a custom field to just an Epic issue type. You know what you need to do to just do that?
Yeah, I open my team managed project, I go to Epic, and I add a field.
We don't do team managed projects in my world.
Well, there's your problem. You gotta use those.
No, no, no. That doesn't exist in my world. So, in a company managed project, which is the one you should be using, you got to go through quite a few hoops, right? You got to create the custom field. You got to go create the screen. You got to create the screen scheme. You got to stick that screen scheme in the right issue type screen scheme, right? And make sure that that issue type screen scheme is in the right project and stuff, right? So it's quite a bit of hoops.
Mhm.
And people were like I taught you how to do it. It's not that hard, but they got to rewatch that video over and over and over a few times before it sinks in,
Yeah, and that's
or
where
you pay.
yep. Yeah, and that's where, like, when I think through my what I'm trying to do with the training, it's like everyone knows how a hammer works, right? You can teach someone to use a hammer, but there's so many other things it could be used for that unless you figure it out or you're taught it, you don't know. And a lot of these tools, to your point, like I can show you how to do this, but unless you understand the underlying concepts and like when and why you would do that thing, it's going to go over your head. Like
Yeah.
it won't stick.
And I think that's why my YouTube videos do so well, right? Because in each one of my videos, I don't just tell you how to do something. It's very opinionated. Like, here's the scenario for this, or a scenario for that, or why
Mhm.
you would want to use it here and not then, and stuff like that. So I give that real world feedback of my struggles for when you're adding a custom field. Because adding a custom field is something you shouldn't do unless you have to, right? Same thing with anything in Jira.
I'm now thinking back to instances I've been in with, just the same field name or something very similar, just repeated 27 times. It's like, why does this exist?
Oh man, don't even get me started on like start date and due date when they use the big D's and the little S, and like because the out of the box one has a very specific like big
Mhm.
F and I think a little D, but then other people will come in and make it the capital S, capital D.
Yeah, yeah, they'll have their own spelling. Oh, come back. There we go.
Yeah, you're back. But yeah, so it's I think that's usually what I tell people is like the hardest thing about being a Jira admin is not necessarily knowing how to do the thing, but knowing when to say no, which is something that's really hard to convey in a course format, right?
Um, it's nothing I consider putting in there, and I'm just thinking through what would that training look like? Because that's a different skill, right? That's not a Jira skill. That's a system agnostic ability that many people don't have.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
kind of need that, right? Because like if I'm hiring someone for to be a Jira admin, I could care less if you know how to add a status to a workflow,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to ask you give me a status to a workflow. I'm going to ask you something outrageous, and I want to see if you're going to fight me back. Because you shouldn't add 20 different done statuses for something that should be a resolution,
We got capital D and lower. Can you at least two, uppercase,
right? Yeah.
lowercase? Yeah, but
No, but
like,
you get what I'm saying, right? Like just me
Mhm.
teaching somebody how to status to Jira is the 1/100th of the solution.
Oh,
I don't
certainly.
care for that.
Yeah, the pushback though that no, that's a bad idea. That skill is you can pull out from Jira. And how do you teach? Just say no if you think something's a bad idea.
You can't. I mean, this is like it's so subjective and it's so hard to teach it, right? But
I
you
don't.
can kind of that's where I think a live training is a
Hmm.
little bit better for that because you can I can teach it to you right? But then it feels more natural to me because I've done these before. I spent like 2 years teaching Scrum Masters how to use Jira for Scrum.
Mhm.
And they'd ask me like, "Oh, can we track hours?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, but you wouldn't want to." And then we'll
But
get into
why?
that whole discussion, right?
So one story point is 1 hour, right?
Right, yeah, no, one story point is one day.
Um, well, now yeah, now I'm trying to think through how would you teach the skill of pushing back in a generic sense and not through instructor led or not live. Um,
It's experience. That those are the hardest things that you have to if you don't take a training, if you don't take a course and you're trying to figure out how do I become a Jira admin, you have to, like, get the scars first because that's how you learn, right? That's how you're knowing, "That screwed me over once. I don't wanna ever do that again." So
I
I
don't know.
know now to push back.
There's certainly value in that, pain is a good teacher quote. But I think a large part of the training is to help people avoid the pain. Like it helps and it's good, but also if I can say, "Hey, don't touch that, it's going to zap you," then people don't get zapped. They learn
Right,
a different way.
so then we have a different problem, right? So the problem is not I can put the lessons in a video. It's not a problem. But it's how do you put the lessons in a video that people are wanting to click in and watch it?
Mhm. Well, and then they're like, yeah, what's the total audience for this kind of stuff? Because in my mind, it's like if you think of you got 100 people, 90% of them could care less about Jira. They might be forced to use it and they might have to learn how to like make a ticket or add a comment. Then you've got like 9 people out of those 100 who are probably more like me, where I know enough to sound like I know what I'm talking about or to interface with someone like yourself who's that one person who really gets in there. That 1%, maybe those 9 would buy into that. How do I push back? Not the 90,
Right.
at least in my mind. So that
But
that gives you a hint of
that's why I have 15 courses, right? Because I have the how to use Jira for absolute beginners, which is kind
mhm,
of what I've been leading on the live trainings with Atlassian, right? Because that's one hat, that's one type of persona. If you're
yep,
coming in, you don't care about prioritization of issues. You don't care about planning your backlog. Heck, you don't care about adding statuses to Overflow either, right? Because it doesn't mind like it doesn't concern you in your day to day,
mhm,
right? You're not going to do those things. So that's one type of course. But then I have the Jira admin one, which is like here's the workflows, here's the custom fields, here's the screens, here's the permissions, here's all the stuff that normal people could care less about. But holy moly, is it part of your day to day every day?
yeah, like this is where you live. Get comfortable.
Right. But then you have the gamut of everything else, right? So that's why one of my more popular courses and one that I'm actually gonna be I don't know if you saw my July live trainings that I'm doing for Atlassian,
Mhm,
right?
yeah,
It's
the if
how do you
roadmaps, there's one other.
I'm gonna do a roadmaps because that's a niche thing, right? That's like a 1 to 2 hour, very
Mhm,
niched how do you use advanced roadmaps? And then the other one is how to use Jira for Scrum Masters because there is a method to the madness on how to appropriately plan a sprint. There is a method to how to groom your backlog better, right? You just can't get in there and just do things. Like, I mean, you can,
you shouldn't, yeah.
but there's a way, and there's a way that's easier on you that I've learned the last 10 years of doing it. And then there's the documentation, which is a whole different thing.
It's the yeah, if you can find the documentation, it's great, but it's still generic. And so figuring out, like to your point earlier about you got to bring the experience to it and help people understand, no, here's why or here's what not to do is so important and valuable.
Right. So
Um, hmm?
go ahead. No.
I was going to say one thing with those live trainings, like that's for me a testing ground of what could work for, say, a Udemy course or a longer series, because it gives me the excuse opportunity to think through the topic using templates and Confluence. How deep can I get with that? Is that a 15-minute? Is that an hour? Is that a module? Is that just one lecture? It's let
Right.
me kind of prove out some of those ideas.
And it's interesting you say that because like I don't know the relationship or agreements you've had with Andrew from Atlassian, right? But I've seen that your videos have been a lot more s- specialized, right? Like you're going a
Mm,
little bit deeper into specific topics, which I kind of wanted to do. And so I was telling Andrew, I'm like, hey, like I can't teach someone how to use Jira in an hour. Like I can't because I've been doing this for 6 months, and I'm like every session I'm running out of time,
yeah.
or I'm rushing through it like 1,000 miles per hour. Everybody's like, slow down, dude. I'm like, I
What
can't.
are
I
you
got
doing? Back
15
back
minutes.
up to that first point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I gotta slow down. So I'm like, "Oh, but I can spend an hour on like how to set up your board, right? But that's just an hour now. That's a different topic. This is not how to use Jira. This is like how to configure your Jira board,
Mhm.
right?
There's so I was just reminded I had a friend who went to like a graphics art university and he had an assignment. It's draw like 500 self-portraits by class tomorrow, or like there's some crazy timeline. And the whole point is to get people to figure out like what's important in the sketch. And he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you look at your stack of 100 or however many, and the first one's like super detailed. And by the end, it's just like a circle, like a smiley face. And partially that's people getting fed up, like, I got to do this. But he was telling me like that forces you as an artist to think through what's the actual structure you need to represent. Getting the hour limitation has been helpful to me. Like Confluence Basics started as 45 minutes. I'm like, I need an hour. And even that, I have to pick and choose. And it's forced me to work more with the audience to like, hey, what do you want from this? And then,
Yeah,
oh, I
especially the
forgot search.
Q&A.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when I first saw your 45 minutes, I was like, there's no way.
It's recorded. We could go watch it and just see what got chopped off.
Yeah, no. I'd be interesting. So I never, I think started to admit this more publicly. I never watch my stuff
Mhm.
ever. I've never watched my own Jira life. I've never seen any of my own videos, and
Oh,
I
you got
have
to
to
do your own
be.
editing. That's why.
I don't. My wife
I know
does
you,
it.
you should though. Then you'll really see yourself.
Yeah, no. So I have now forced my wife to put on headphones when she's editing because I don't. I hate hearing myself.
Oh, I've started. So one of the tricks I use when I'm trying to go faster with editing is I'll edit at 2x, which is a terrible idea.
I mean, that you could do that.
But yeah, and the way I record it, if say I have a slide up, I'm reading the slide halfway through, I stumble over my words, there's a typo, I'll just clap or snap and go back to the start of the whole slide. So when I'm editing, I just look for those spikes in the audio and just chop out that as like a quick shorthand to speed me up.
Mhm.
But when I listen to myself, it's at the chipmunk speed of 2.5 times. So like I don't
But
really know what my own voice sounds like.
you have
Huh?
such a great voice, though. I can listen to your voice all day long.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's
I mean, you have a voice for this type of work.
yeah. And it's funny, I had when did that start? It was like IT help desk or something, pick up the phone. Someone's like, "Oh, you got a nice voice. Could you, keep talking?" I'm like, "Okay, this is odd." Growing up, I sang in like my mom sings in church choir. It was the local choir is what she did, not particularly religious. And she'd have to bring me, single mom. So I would be sitting around in the back. She got tired of that, put me in the kids' choir. So singing in choirs up until high school, college. And then I was in a call center for a hot second, which if you can avoid it, I can't recommend. But it got your voice in this cadence of like, thank you for calling the AT&T Go Phone Payment Center. This is Robert. Will you be paying by credit or debit card today?
Right.
And like it just trained my voice in such a way that I think just helped improve that.
I
But
mean,
yeah.
if you wanna record all my videos, just go for it.
Yeah, that would be an interesting experiment. Could you be on camera, but me be the voice?
I know, right? I've been thinking so I was talking to Fede from, Dicer yesterday, and I was like, "It might be time to just, like, dub all my videos in Spanish." I'm like, "You do it. You have a great voice in Spanish."
Oh, I looked into thinking about Udemy. They do captioning, and they'll do auto captions, kind of like YouTube. And I have a couple courses. You can see where people are taking them from. It's like, oh, could I get subtitles in Spanish? Because like I barely speak English. Forget any other language. It's useful. And I was looking around, and I realized, oh, you can just export the entire subtitle file and upload it basically to Google Translate. And so it was that or pay like 1,400 bucks for a translator. So I went with the Google
Mm,
Translate.
right, yeah, no brainer there.
Yeah, very, very easy.
That's
Overdub
something
would
that
be
I've been thinking of doing because even Mr. Beast is like, most of my videos are not viewed from English speaking places.
well, yeah, that just like I'll call it raw entertainment. Um, someone was there's some quote about like the Transformers movies, and someone's like, "Why are they so successful?" And the response was something like, "Look, there's no nuance. Giant robot chasing you, run." Like it doesn't matter what language you speak, you know what that is.
Yeah, but well, one thing that Ben and I were considering is like, well, you learn better in your native language, right?
Mhm.
Because if I'm having to translate what you're saying into my language, then
A
that's a
little bit
pain,
of
right?
mental
So,
load.
because I do the
Yeah.
same thing, like I'm speaking in Spanish, right? But even though Spanish is my first language, I've used English most of my life. So when I hear Spanish, I'm translating into English to then
Oh,
formulate my
interesting.
response in Spanish.
Uh-huh.
And so it 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 just sits different because and then it throws me off when I hear a word that I don't know because now I'm just like, well, what the heck does that word mean? But the speaker didn't stop, right? So I've now lost the context. I've lost a
Hmm.
lot. So I mean, I think there is value in natively putting the video in the language that the learner
Oh,
is learning.
100%. What I'm thinking through is if, let's say I were bilingual, would I record it twice? Once English, once French? Would I record
Roberto
it once
Hen
English and
en
overdub?
tecnología.
Sorry?
Roberto Hen en
Yeah.
tecnología.
No, I have a
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's part of the problem, right? It's just like, do you record it twice? Do you pay somebody to do it? Do you, because you also got to translate the video.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing that's been kind of keeping me, that and the fact that I was on another call earlier this week and they're like, "Hey, can we do the meeting in Spanish?" I was like, "Sure." And they're like, "Are you comfortable in Spanish?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, my Spanish is messed up. Like I wouldn't win an award for Spanish speaking,
Mhm.
but I can survive." And the guy's like, "Cool." And I'm like, "I just got to warn you, like it's not perfect." He's like, "But you practice it at home, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't talk Jared to my dad about it."
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the difference between conversational Spanish and business Spanish, full fluency, like
Oh yeah, and then you talk to like the Deezer group, and like they're Castellano Spanish, right? So they're like OG Spanish and like elegant Spanish, and my Spanish is from like the hood.
So, growing up, my parents had divorced. Dad was in Vancouver, Canada. Mom's in near New York City. And I'd go visit dad over the summers, and I'd go to summer camps, and all the kids would say I had a really thick American accent. And like, I don't, at least I don't hear my own accent. So then I go home back to school, and all the kids go, Rob, you got a really thick Canadian accent. And I was like, how do I have both? I was there long enough to pick it up. Like,
I guess you start saying a boot,
the boot. It's the
a boot.
ooze
Yeah.
sitting on a
Um,
Chesterfield toucan.
so I wanted to talk to you about creativity a little bit here. When I look at your videos, right, we were talking about your humble beginnings earlier,
Hmm?
but your newest stuff, your latest stuff, my hat's off to you, man. Like, what's this process look like?
Thank you. It's funny. Like it started with some of the, hey, creator squad, here's something to post about as a challenge. And when I think of like technical stuff, how do you use Confluence, right? It's usually very straightforward. Here's the feature I like and why. Here's how to use the thing. Here's how to write this code. And that is valuable. Like we need that because there are technical skills we have to understand. But then I'm also watching TikTok with my wife before bed, and I'm like, but we're laughing at this and this is entertaining. So how do I smash those two together in a way that makes sense? And it starts out as an amusement to
But the
Rob. I'm like,
idea is easy, right? The idea of like smashing them together makes sense. Everybody's can do that. But how in the world did you create that Confluence whiteboard video?
so to describe it to the folks who haven't seen it, Confluence whiteboards exist. It allows collaboration. Great. The video has me as three separate people, all working on a remote team who have been mailed a copy of the whiteboard from the
A
office.
physical whiteboard.
A physical whiteboard. It's over there in the corner right now. And then the joke is someone's on the call. Okay, we're all going to update it at the same time. So draw a circle here, and then someone brings up, oh hey, there's Confluence whiteboards. Let's go do that. I was just thinking, okay, what would be funny about this? What's the problem that the whiteboard solves? Oh, you don't all have to be standing around the same whiteboard. Oh, what if a company was like, hey, to solve the problem, we send a physical whiteboard? And then I just ran out in here and just like, okay, how do I shoot this?
But like, where, like, do you have to be in a specific room for this inspiration to come, or you just like,
No, I'm constantly opening my phone and like writing an email to myself. Like, what if we tried it this way? Or what about this? And it's a weird, like, it's just that mental click of seeing something or watching a TikTok or walking around going, well, there's this guy on TikTok who's a doctor of some kind, and he talks to himself in different personas, making fun of the medical profession. Okay, I'll use that as the structure. And then what thing do I insert into it? Oh, how to use JQL. I've got one coming up on templates to push the course, the online thing at the end of the month. But
yeah, I
like,
was gonna tell you, man, that the Confluence whiteboard one, I didn't even I that May 31st deadline came, and I'm like, I saw Rob's video. There's no, what's the point? I'm not even gonna waste time.
there's always a point. It's just like,
No,
again, that's
no,
why
no.
they're
There was no
constraints,
point
right?
because your video was just like, nobody can top the execution of that video.
Oh, of course they can. I look at what I do and I'm like, where's I've got a GoPro somewhere I've been using. I use this thing, the GoPro, and I had a cardboard box, I think, for that video. Um, and for me, like my wife pointed out, like this is Rob, this is your creative process. She does painting, and that's her Zen state. Like, I get a kick out of how do I make this a short,
Yeah.
and
Well,
how am I amused by it? Forget anyone else. What will make
well,
me laugh like an idiot?
but it's just such an interesting, like, you and Nikki have, like, this gift of creativity that I just can't, for as much as I try, I can't find it in me. I've tried so much, and it's you can't even emulate it because for me to sit there and, like, try to make a video like your whiteboard one, right? Like, it's not gonna come out the same way. And for me to I feel like Emmett when I'm looking at some of you guys, right? Because like, I need the book, I need the instruction guide.
Mm.
I
It-
don't have an original thought.
and that, like, again, there's nothing right or wrong about that. I do it because I have fun with it. Like, I had fun making that one. I had fun making this Confluence one where the guy's sitting, you'll see it, but he's sitting in a room by himself and he starts hearing some voice whispering, like, use templates, you dummy. Um, like the POV from the computer. But again, it just pops into my head like, oh, I could do that. And then
Now
I'll spend like 2 hours doing them for a 15-second, 60-second
15-second
spot.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
now I did wanna ask them, right? Because clearly you enjoy this, right? Like, I think you
Mhm.
see this side of Rob that I'm assuming is a completely different Rob than the Rob that you see in your Udemy courses.
They're
When you're
starting to
making the
blend.
videos, right?
Yeah, they're starting to blend and it's
But I don't wanna stop there.
Mhm.
Is this Rob that we see in your Udemy and we see on TikTok, is that a different Rob than your employer gets to see?
In some ways, because when it's professional Rob, I'm helping a team right now pull apart a service management project. And it's like, okay, why do we have this particular SLA? Like, what does this do for us?
Right.
Okay, why are these tickets routed to that person? Oh, well, we've
But
always
the
like in those questions.
but the deeper
Um,
question, at what
mhm.
point does the Rob, the happy Rob of the creative Rob outweigh the professional Rob, so that Rob is only just the creative Rob?
Yeah,
And are you
yeah.
thinking about these? Like, is this something
When
that you're
YouTube started.
actively trying to figure out?
Oh yeah. I asked my wife one day. I kind of freaked her out. I was like, "So what would it take if by the time our kids are in middle school, that I don't need a traditional 9 to 5, that I can do the Udemy, the creator, the whatever?" And she kind of, oh my God, no, like we got to figure out finances and all that. I'm like, okay, hang on. I was just thinking like I would probably get more of that intrinsic joy out of this kind of thing than out of, helping an HR team set up a policy thing in Confluence. And I'm making up examples here.
Yeah.
Um, but I have the ability to make them run in parallel. Like it's not an either or for me, thankfully. And
Today.
at my job, I am able to flex some of these. I work a lot with internal teams on, hey, the sales team is doing their big year end party. Rob, can you edit together a video, 90 seconds to help pump it up? Yeah, of
Mm,
course. And that is part of my job, capital J.
right.
There's many other parts of it. But selfishly, I'd love in that 3 to 5 year time horizon to have the ability to do more of this because I enjoy it. And not that I don't enjoy parts of my job, I do. But you're not going to see me quite as animated, quite as like, yeah, let's do that. Because my job is to be a professional systems person, not
Yeah,
to
no,
create content that teachers and I enjoy.
well, and I bring it up, right, because this is a struggle that I'm
Mhm.
struggling with every single day, and every decision I've made for the last 7, 8 months has been geared towards me just making content,
Yeah.
which is a very weird thing to do, to walk away from the safety of a job and the security of a job to enter a world where you're judged by hundreds of thousands of people.
I don't know. What do they call it? The parasocial relationship where it's, very much one way. It's all the people watching you build a relationship. Um,
Something like that. So from a business perspective then, what are your goals here? Like, what are you trying to build?
and I told my wife when I started the Udemy thing, if it made $1,000 total, like every course over however long, I'd be wildly successful. I'm
Well, that was
now,
like a year ago.
uh, yeah, I'm doing almost double that monthly. So it went from a beer money side project to, oh, this is a viable, side hustle, I guess is what they call them now. So there's numbers in my head I have to hit before I'd be able to, yeah, I'm going to go do that. Um, but again, I have the luxury of I have a job and I have a spouse who's very supportive and I have I can pay my rent on all of that. So I have this space when the kids are asleep or early in the morning or on the weekends to go make these crazy videos where I'm shipping whiteboards to people.
But you also live in one of the most expensive cities in the world.
Yeah, it's not cheap in the Bay Area. And that's just an accident of where my wife found a job while we were living long distance. So but you're absolutely right. If I move to, middle of nowhere, North Dakota, it's probably cheaper to live there.
Yeah,
Could I convince my wife and kids to move there? Probably not.
probably not. That's one of the biggest moves. So I used to live in San Diego,
Mhm.
and I just recently moved out. I call it the desert. It's not really the desert, but it's not Orange County. It's not San Diego County. It's not LA County, but it's the first city when you leave Orange County. And again, it feels more deserty, but it allowed me to leave San Diego, which is uber high, right?
Mhm.
I sold my house for double than what I bought it, and then I
Yeah,
went and bought myself a house that was much cheaper than what I just sold the other one for.
that's good.
So needless to say, I have basically eliminated my mortgage at this point.
Mhm.
And that was like step one of like this financial freedom to like, okay, I now don't have a $5,000 a month mortgage over my head. Can I
That's
now
huge.
think more creatively?
Yeah. Has it helped? Like, have you felt that weight
Well, I just
shifting?
did it on Friday, so here
Hey,
we are
congrats.
Thursday. I
Oh,
just did it last
you've had what, 6 days? Come on.
yeah, about 6 days. No, because, like, part of me worries about, like, my wife's like, "This week" in fact, it's funny you asked me that, right? This week yesterday, I think I pulled a 15-hour day, and my wife's like, "I thought the whole purpose was to pay off the house so that we would work less, not double down on the work."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Well, it's I'm going through a the opposite of famine, whatever the
Mhm.
opposite of famine is,
Feast.
right? I'm
Feast.
going through a feast right now, and I'm like, it's hard to say no when there's money,
Mhm.
and I worry so much about a moment where there won't be money, right? So it seems silly to me for right now that like stars are aligned and the worlds are aligned and everything's in my favor to say no, I don't want to do it because I don't want to work an extra hour tonight, right?
Yeah,
And,
that's a
and so
hard.
that's kind of the struggle that I have right now. It's like I want to save up enough because I've left nothing. I want to save up enough for a rainy day, but at the same time, I need to slowly start transitioning to just doing what I want to do now. But I will tell you that in the last week, I have been become more picky with what I do sign up and don't sign up for.
Oh, good. That's something I've heard. I'm not at that stage yet where the critical mass is high enough. Um, and that's where honestly, when I think of like the Udemy side of the house, that gives me a consistent income. I'm not relying on all that, but I go, okay, that's a chunk I don't have to worry about like from my job or from something else. So having
Mhm.
that kind of just passively coming in is a good mental cushion
Yeah,
versus
so
the.
I've been trying to get it so that that mental cushion is covers at least all my expenses 100%. So I think
Mhm.
once that happens, like I'm more open to it. But I would say I was hoping to have done it by now, but I think by the end of summer we're gonna be seeing some drastic changes over on my brand and my channel and everything that I do here.
Ooh, drastic changes. Any hints?
Volume, more videos, more content that you'll care like mental numbness of the content you'll see coming out of my channels.
There is something I've been trying to puzzle out that's helped me a bit, which is using content in multiple spots. So I this morning I did an Atlassian Confluence basics training. I also recorded off just the video. I can then stuff that through Opus to make shorts. Or a lot of the Udemy stuff I do, I also chunk down into shorts to just give me days of content. It's not the high level stuff like with the whiteboard video, but it's something to put out there is to keep the pressure up. So that's been helpful to figure out how can I break it up and use one thing I made over an hour or two in multiple spots.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, this is why I have 45 interviews that I'm doing this summer, which they're 45 hours worth of like there's got to be 20, 30 clips in each one of these videos that I can just take out. With the Jira Life, we did the same thing. We haven't had a chance to do it, right? But we have this catalog of over 50 something videos that we've recorded on the Jira Life where they're full length interviews. But I just time right now is my biggest challenge.
Uh-huh. And I use an automated service for the shorts, at least for the
Are you
mass
using
market.
Opus Clip?
Opus, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we have that one. I haven't played around with too much, but I'm usually just recording. I'm just pumping out the content. I let my wife worry about it. But the other problem is, and I don't know how much you see 'em, it sounds like your wife and my wife sound equally as supportive. But the problem the bigger challenge that I have, and the reason why like I reach out to someone like you, is my wife doesn't have that same vision, right? Like
Mhm,
she's like a doer, not a thinker type of
mhm.
thing. Like my wife's like really good. Like I'll give her 50 things to take care of today, and like all 50 things will be done. Awesome. But when I sit down and we're like, let's brainstorm the next 50 things, she's like, you tell me what you want me to do, boo.
Yeah, that's the balance.
But I need that. I need that creative. Like I need somebody to just like kick the can with me and go, what the heck should we do? What can be
And yeah,
done?
and again, that's tying back kind of the start of the discussion. That's one of the reasons I wanted to join the Atlassian creators is to have those 60 or however many of us there are now to just say, "Hey, here's an idea. What do y'all think?"
Yeah,
Or
and this
or
is
to
why I think you and I had this conversation the first time you came into the scene, right? Like, I really, and it's got to be more than words at this point, right? Like, there's a group of business-oriented creators that we need to come together, whether it's once a week, once every other week, to go, here's our like plan for the next 2 weeks of content. Here's the titles, here's the drafts, here's the sketches, here's the idea.
Mhm.
What do y'all think? What's going on? Like, have you had success here? Because if you're like, hey Alex, I'm gonna do a video on this, I go like, I did that 2 weeks ago and like it was total garbage. Like it didn't resonate. So
Yeah.
so maybe tweak it, right? So I can say like, this is what I struggle with. So maybe you have some tweaks, right? But like that's how we get ahead over everybody who's kind of like in these silos, just trial and error alone versus trial and error as a group.
Mhm. Yeah,
We go
having the
5x,
sounding
10x
board
our
is helpful.
efforts.
Yeah.
So we got that's got to come together very soon.
If only there was someone with time who could do that.
I don't have time. You don't have time. None of us have time. That's the problem. Like this is until this doesn't become a side job for so many of us. Because Brittany Joyner and I were talking about it too, right? She's like, "This is my side hustle." So Brittany's like, "I can only dedicate an hour to two to content creation a week," right? And I'm like,
Oh,
Brittany,
yeah, I
I'm
get
doing it
let's see, maybe half hour in the morning, maybe an hour after the kids are down, and maybe 2 hours on the weekend.
right.
But
So you're
that's for
talking right
yeah, that
for
maybe 5 hours, but that's all of
5
it.
hours a week,
Every
right?
LinkedIn post, all the editing, all the recording, all that.
So I'm knocking out about 5 a day
Mhm.
today.
Yeah, so you should be at least 5 times as much as us, right?
I mean, problem is like I wouldn't say like a lot of it right now is like networking and stuff, right? Like coordination.
Mhm.
But dedicated to this brand, to this channel, it's like at least 5 hours a day.
And it is a job, just
Right.
different.
But all of it, a lot of it is like this. I think I showed it to a couple of people, right? It's like 5 hours a day, but I'm still in the idea phases of stuff,
Mhm.
which is like, okay, so I've done this creative mode and now I'm just ready to now go execute on it. So that's why I'm like, what's gonna come after this summer of Atlassian? Like I'm dubbing it like Ape Tech 2.0. Where do you go?
Perfect. That's my overly expensive setup has a couple of bugs I'm still working out.
Well, Rob, I think that's all I wanted to talk. I don't. I had Udemy, I had creativity, and I had our businesses. So I think you are someone I look up to. Someone that when I look at the from the Udemy perspective, you are where I want to be.
Mhm.
When we look at it from a creativity perspective, you're definitely where I want to be. Can't figure out how to get there on that one. And it's just I would say keep it up. I think your work is very appreciated, at least in my circle of what I like. And
Yeah, thank you, Alex.
I wanted
A
to say
and
thank you. Go
yeah,
ahead.
same to you. I mean, you've got the drive and you've committed in ways that many of us haven't. So I look at that and go, okay, what do I learn from that, and how do I get to that spot?
It's a lot of time, I can tell you that. I'm just so tired. I think one day I'm gonna take a sabbatical. I keep telling people that one day my goal is to just like buy an alfalfa farm and just never have the internet ever again.
It's a good goal. I know a guy who wants to own a goat farm in like somewhere in Kenya. and he's like in hardcore tech. So
Yeah, I don't know how to go to Kenya, but I wouldn't mind a goat farm either.
yeah,
Just maybe middle of the United States or something. But yeah, there's just a moment where I think I don't want to be on a computer on the internet. I was telling my wife, and I'm like, I'm so happy we bought these Macs because like this machine for the like I throw it at it like 15, 16 hours a day right now.
God, I can
Like,
handle it. Yeah.
yeah, and it can handle them. And you need equipment that can handle this level of because we're recording, we're editing, we're doing everything with it, right? You need equipment that works.
hmm Yeah, the right
Because
tools.
otherwise it's just excuses to not do something, right?
Oh, I got plenty of those.
Right. No, definitely. All right, Rob. Well, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you being here. And
Yeah,
again, thank you very much for your content and keep up the good work. I like to be inspired even more.
you got it. I'll send you some sneak peeks, Alex. I appreciate you inviting me on. It's been fun.
Yep. All right. Have a great day, man.
Cheers, you too.
And remember that today's sponsor is Resolution's out of office assistant app for JSM. Don't ever do a round robin assignment ever again. Use this out of office assistant to automatically take care of everything for you.